Today we're going to take Elementor Pro, the Hello theme and various other tools, and we're going to create a fully bespoke website, creating our own custom theme. If this interests you, stick around because I'm going to take you through every single aspect right now. My name is Paul C and welcome to WP Touch, the channel where I help you create beautiful WordPress websites. If this is your first time on the channel, please consider subscribing and smashing that bell icon below to become part of the WP crew and be notified every time new content is added. Okay, so before we start, let's go and take a look at some of the tools we're going to be using. First and most importantly, we're going to be using Elementor Pro. This is a pro tutorial because we need to have access to that theme builder to create the various different template files for our custom theme. So if you don't have that, I'd recommend grabbing yourself a copy. The link is in the description below so you can check that out. They are affiliate links, so anything you purchase through those links will give a small percentage back to the channel. It doesn't cost you any more, but does help support what we do around here. On top of that, we're also going to be using the Hello theme. Now, the Hello theme is a free theme that's developed by the developers behind Elementor and Elementor Pro. It's a very bare bones theme. It literally just keeps WordPress happy and nothing more. We're going to create all the key different template files that we need for this entire website and project. On top of that, I'm going to recommend that we use SEO Press. I'm not going to go into detail about how you use this, but if you are building a website, it's good to have that SEO built into the site from the beginning. SEO Press is one of those things that you can use the completely free version. It has a ton of options. There's a pro level version that has some additional options, which is a steal at the moment. And again, if you're interested in getting better SEO, I'd highly recommend checking out SEO Press. Again, I'll drop the link in the description below so you can go and take a look. Finally, we're going to also install iTheme Security. Now, iTheme Security is a free security plugin. I'm not going to cover that in detail in this video, but I've already created one on how you can use this plugin to actually go through and secure your website. I'll drop that link below so you can check that out if this is something you're interested in. So take a look at that. Okay, so that's the key things we're going to use. Now let's crack on and take a look at how we go through the entire process of building this website from scratch. Now, there are various different methods we can use to install WordPress onto our server. For this example, we're going to be using the cPanel and the Soft Acculus, which is an easy way of going through the process of installing without any technical kind of knowledge. However, if you want a more in-depth manual way of doing things, I've covered that in its own dedicated video on how to install WordPress. I'll link down the corner now, and I'll also put it in the description below. So if you want to check that out, you can see that and you can focus a little bit more in detail on how to install WordPress. Okay, now before we move on and actually install WordPress, what exactly is cPanel and what if you don't have it? Well, cPanel is a visual way to allow you to interact with all the different tools and facilities you have as part of your hosting account. Now, different hosting companies will have different versions of cPanel, or they might have something different. However, pretty much all of the good hosting companies out there should have the option to allow you to quickly and easily install key software, things like WordPress, all done through this method. But I say, if you don't have that option and you want to do it manually, I've got you covered on that one as well. So just check out the video on how to do that. Okay, so inside the cPanel, we're going to scroll down and we're going to find Soft Acculus. You can see there we've got a ton of different software we can install. We're only interested in WordPress, so what we're going to do is we're going to start that process off. So click on WordPress, that will take us over and give us an overview of the WordPress version and the different things we have available as part of WordPress. Now, you can read through all this if you want to, and I'd recommend it only if you really need to sort of get a refresher on what WordPress is, what sort of options and features you have and so on. What we want to do is click on Install Now. Once you do that, that's going to start the installation process, and all we need to do is fill in some basic information. You can, if you want, use the quick install option. However, we're going to go through and just make sure that everything is in place for our particular copy of WordPress. Now, speaking of the versions, you can see we can choose from the various different versions that are part of this cPanel. We're going to set it to be the most latest version of 5.11 at the time of recording this video. Next up, we've got the protocol we want to use. Now, that might sound quite complicated. What exactly is the protocol? All they really mean is, do you want to use HTTP on its own? Do you want the www dot at the beginning? Or do you have an SSL certificate installed, and at which point you would need to use the HTTPS to get the sort of secure connection? Whatever you have set up and whatever you want moving forward, just choose the one that you want to use on there. We're going to choose the HTTP because I'm not using an SSL certificate at the moment. The next option is to choose the domain. Now, you might have multiple domains all associated with your one hosting account. Choose which is the primary one you want to use with your particular copy of WordPress. Next up, we've got in directory. So if you wanted to place WordPress inside its own directory, you could do that. I'm not going to. I want to make sure this is the root of my domain. Next up, we've got the site settings. So you can see we've got the site name, we've got the site description, and is it going to be used as part of a multi-site? Now, we're going to leave that as it is. We can change that in WordPress later on, and it's not going to be part of a sort of WordPress setup and not a multi-site. So we can leave that as is. Next up, you've got the admin account. Now, the first thing I would so recommend here is do not, under any circumstances, leave your admin username as admin, and don't use a password that's really, really simple, like password 123, a date of birth, and so on. So put in the details you want in there. I'm just going to fill those out, making sure that you put something that's going to be quite complicated to actually sort of figure out. So you can see that I put those in there. I've got 100 out of 100 for the strength of my password. So I've used things like uppercase, lowercase. We've used things like numbers, letters, and so on, just to make sure that we have something that's difficult to decipher. Finally, you've got the admin email address. This is the email address that is going to be associated with WordPress, and this is where you'll normally get anything to do with your WordPress website sent through to, so put in whatever is relevant for you. I'm going to leave that as the admin one here. That's fine. Next up, you've got the option to choose the language. So obviously, if you're not using English as the core language for WordPress, you can change that to whatever you want, and you can see we have lots of different options available. Choose whatever's relevant. Next up, we've got a couple of plugins we can go through and choose. Do we want to install Limit Login, Attempts Optimizer, the Classic Editor, or the WP Central? The only thing I want to put in is the Classic Editor because I want to replace Gutenberg. Then you can see we've got some advanced options. So if we take a little look inside there, you can see we've got things like the database name, the table prefix, and so on. If you are comfortable dealing with this side of things, then check or uncheck and change anything you think is relevant. But for me, for example, I'm going to leave this as is. I don't want any of those things on there. I like to have full control, and we're not going to choose a theme at this point. So let's hit that install button. And providing everything is in place, it's going to go through now, check any of the data that we've submitted, and go through the install process. And as you can see, we've now installed WordPress onto our domain. Very simple to do. You can see we've got a couple of links on here. They link to the website and also to the admin for the website. So if we click on the first link, that'll take us over and show us the website. And you can see it's just a default copy of WordPress, just some basic filler information in there. If we come back and we click on the second option, which is for the admin link, we can click, and that'll take us through to allow us to go to the login section or log us in directly based upon the information that we created when we installed WordPress. So we're going to dismiss all these, and you can see we're now into WordPress itself, and we're ready to go through and start setting things up. Do things like installing the theme, installing the plugins we want, and making some basic configuration settings to make sure that WordPress is ready for us to start building our website. So now that WordPress is installed, let's go through and clean up our plugins section and then start downloading and installing the plugins that we need. First thing of all, we don't need the Akismet and the Hello Dolly. We're just simply going to delete those because they're not needed for our copy. They're just installed as part of WordPress as default. So now we've removed those extraneous plugins, let's go through and click on Add New. And the first plugin we're going to search for is the free version of Elementor. We're going to use that as our page builder. So we're going to click on Install now. We'll let that install, we'll activate it, and then we'll move on to the next plugin. The next plugin we want is SEO Press. So we'll go ahead and install that, but we won't activate it yet. We'll leave the activation until a little later. So we'll install. Next up, we're looking for our security plugin. For this example, we're going to be using iTheme Security. And again, we'll install, we won't activate this yet. Now, I've got a detailed video on how to use iTheme Security, so we're just going to fly through it quite quickly when we actually activate it on the site. If you want more details on that, I'd recommend taking a look at that. And again, I'll link that in the description below so you can take a look in more detail. Okay, so those are the first couple of plugins we want to install. Next up, we need to put in the Elementor Pro, which is something we have to purchase. Reason behind this, like I said at the top of the video, is that we want to get access to those templating functions so we can go through and create our own custom templates and create a more bespoke WordPress website. I've already gone ahead and downloaded this, so all we need to do is click on Upload Plugin. That'll open up the option to choose the file, and then we can simply drag and drop our file over the Choose File button and then click Install Now. Once that's installed, we click on the Activate plugin. Now the process for this is a little different because we have to either put in the security code for using this particular plugin or connect it through to our account. I'm going to activate it manually, and then I'll just put in my license key and activate this. And there we go, we are fully activated. So that's the key software that we want to install. The next thing we need to do is put in the theme. Now, as I said at the top of this video, we're going to be using the Hello theme. And the reason being is because it allows us to basically just keep WordPress happy by having a theme installed, but it has pretty much no content to it other than the ability to sort of put in your logo and the title and your menu. That's pretty much all it does. So it means that we have a total amount of flexibility to tap into those themes that we can build inside Elementor Pro itself without the need to worry about the actual theme taking over. That'll become a little bit more evident as we go through. So let me just show you how we do that in the next section. So in this section, we're going to take a look at how we download and install the Hello theme for our copy of WordPress, and also how and why we use a child theme. Okay, so the theme for Elementor is the Hello theme, which is, like I said in the previous section, just a very, very basic theme that just keeps WordPress happy, just has the core things you need and nothing more. Now, you can't get this by just searching at the moment in WordPress under the theme section. You have to come over to the GitHub where we can download all the files. Now this might sound a little daunting, but don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. I'll put a link in the description below for where you get this from, and then you can just follow along with me. Now this looks a little bit sort of overwhelming because you have a ton of files and it's like, well, what exactly do I do? Well, to be honest, all you need to do is go to this green button, click on clone or download, and just choose download zip. That's it, it's done. There's our zip file. You can see we can find that on our system. Now all we need to do is go back into our dashboard for WordPress. We're going to come over to the appearance section on the left hand side and come into themes. Once we're in there, you can see we have a couple of themes that are default install with WordPress itself. We're going to get rid of those in a moment. All we need to do now is add our new theme. So we're going to click on add new. And we're going to click on upload theme because, like I say, we can't actually find it inside this section. So we're going to click on upload theme, and exactly the same as we did in the previous section when we uploaded a plugin, we're simply going to drag our file, our zip file, over this choose file button. You can see it tells us what file it is. We can click on install now, let that go through the process of installing our theme. And there we go. That now tells us that our theme is installed. We have a couple of options. We can live preview, we can activate it, or we can return to the themes page. We're going to return to the themes page because we don't actually want to activate this theme. We want to upload a child theme. Now, a child theme is a very, very stripped out version of some core files that WordPress needs. And what it allows us to do is if we make changes to any of those core files, things like the functions file or the CSS file, it will not affect the actual parent, in this example, the Hello theme. What this means is if we make changes to that and we need to update the actual master theme, the Hello theme, not the child theme, the Hello theme, we can update that knowing that any of the changes that we make to our child theme will not be affected. So we'll make sure that we have all of the changes we make, no matter how many times we update the master theme, the parent theme, it'll always keep our changes. It might sound a little bit confusing right now, but just bear in mind that whenever you use a theme, no matter what you do, even at this point when you actually install everything, you don't intend to make any changes to that. There might be times further down the line where you have to, and you do not want to make those changes to your parent files. Now, the Hello theme does not come with a child theme. You have to make your own. Now, what I've done is I've gone ahead and made this for you. I'll put a link in the description below so you can go and grab yourself a copy of that and you don't have to worry about trying to go through the process of finding out how and then making a copy for yourself. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to click on add new. Once we've done that, we're going to click on upload theme. And we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to choose our file. So we're simply going to drag our file in, drop that over the choose file. You can see Elementor child theme. Click install now. And that's going to go through and do exactly the same as before. So we go back to our themes page. And you'll see now we have the Hello child theme and the Hello Elementor, which is the parent. So we're going to activate the child theme. So you're going to click on activate. That will then go through and choose that as being our key theme. Okay, so that's how we put the themes in there. And like I say, don't worry too much if this is a little bit overwhelming and you're not really sure why you'd use child and parent themes. Just bear in mind that it's always good practice to make sure you use that child theme. And like I say, if you want to use Hello to follow along with this, just grab that link from below and you can just upload it in the exact same way that I have. Now we're going to get rid of these other themes, and the easiest way to do that is click in the theme details and just click on delete. So I'll just click on OK on there, and then I'll delete the other themes, and we'll just come back and carry on working. Now you might be asking yourself, well, if I've got a child theme, and I've got a really simple theme like hello for Elementor, do I actually need the parent theme, the hello Elementor theme? The simple answer is yes, you do. The reason being, a child theme literally contains just a couple of core files, the files that generally are the files that change when you customize a theme. Like I say, the functions.php file that allows you to customize various different aspects of WordPress, and also the actual CSS file, which is where you can style the way things look. You don't want to overwrite the original ones. But then there's other things like the template files for pages and posts and so on. You don't want to edit those, and if you do, you should edit those and create copies inside your child theme. Like I say, it might seem a little bit daunting, but just bear in mind, always use a child theme wherever possible. Okay, so that's how easy it is to go through, install and activate a theme. We're now ready to move on to the next section. So now that we've installed the theme and the key plugins, let's just come back in and just configure some of the things that we need inside WordPress itself. You can see we get this little wizard at the beginning that says these are some of the things that you might need to do on your fresh copy of WordPress. Well, we're going to ignore those for now. We're going to close those down. We're going to clean up the look of our dashboard. Click on the screen options in the top right hand side and we can uncheck anything we don't want to see. So let's say we're going to get rid of these various different things. So we end up with a nice, clean, simple interface to work with. Close that back down and you can see that's got rid of those things. Want to bring any of those back, you simply come in and just check them and that'll show them. So just visually hiding things. Once we've done that, we're going to come through to the settings section. You can see inside there we've got a range of different sections we can go through. So let's quickly run through the things that we need. First of all, we're going to jump into the permalinks. Now, if you've never seen or heard of permalinks before, permalinks is basically the link structure for your website. So you can see it shows us examples. By default, you might have something like this, which is your domain / P = 123, which means nothing to anybody. What I recommend is use the post name. That's kind of one of the go-tos that you have available, and that'll just make a bit more sense because what it does is whatever you title your post or your page and so on, it will use that then as the actual second part of the URL. So you're going to have much better SEO, search engine optimization results by using that kind of structure. However, if you want to go in and create something a little bit more customized, you can choose a custom structure and then you can use any of these options to customize exactly how you want your domain and your URLs to actually be displayed. Generally, I tend to say post name is probably the most obvious and the easiest one to work with. We're going to save changes on there. That's all I want to change at that point. You've then got things like your media. If we jump into there and take a look, you can see you can control exactly what media is created every time you upload a file. So if you upload an image, this will by default create 3 different versions of your file. It'll create a thumbnail, a medium, and a large version. You can also go through and say, do you want to organize my uploads into months and year-based folders? Now, this isn't something you see inside WordPress. This is just something that actually the file structure behind WordPress on the server, this is how it will organize all of your data. Up to you whether you want to do that. It does tend to make things a little bit easier to find if you know a date that you uploaded something. However, if you don't care, you can uncheck that and it'll just put all of your files into one upload folder. The next option is I want to go into discussion. Now, if you are creating a website and you don't want people to be able to leave comments, you can go and do that on a page-by-page or post-by-post basis, but that can get a little bit time-consuming and unwieldy. You may also want to control how people comment, whether they have to be registered, whether it wants to be approved, and so on. So you have a load of options available inside the discussion settings. What you're going to do is go through and set up what you think is relevant. So if you do or don't want to allow people to post comments, you have a simple option. We can go through and just specify we don't want that to happen. So it says allow people to comment on new articles. If you uncheck that, you can create that set globally. And then if you want to allow it on certain posts or pages, you can activate it manually on a post or page. It's up to you how you want to move forward. If it's a blog, it might be good to allow comments, whereas if it's a normal website, you probably want to disable that. The other things we've got in here then are things like reading, which we can go in and specify a static page for our homepage and our post page. And this is something we'll come back to a little later on when we start creating our actual content and layouts. For now, we can leave that as is, and that's the basics of what we need to do to sort of set up WordPress for this particular example. So we're going to move on to the next thing now, which is setting up and creating some of those key page elements, your headers and your footers. So the next thing we need to do now is create our header and footer. These are the key components that pretty much every page on your site are going to display. So it's very easy to do with Elementor Pro. If we take a look on the left hand side, you can see we've got the template section, and inside there we have a range of different sections we can use to do various different things. So what we're looking for is to go into the theme builder. So we're going to click on theme builder. Once we've done that, you can see the first thing we can do now is create and add our new templates. If you wanted to, you could import them. So if you are saving templates that you've created and you want to pull those in and use those as the basis of your next website, you can easily do that. However, we're going to come in and we're going to say add new template. This is going to bring us into the templating options, and it's a very simple section. All we need to do is come in and specify what is this template about. So we're going to click and you can see we have a range of different sections we can create. We've got pages, sections, headers, footers, single, archive, and pop-up. We're going to focus on, first of all, the header section. I'm going to click on there. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call this default header. Now, the reason I call it default header is because this is the one that's going to be used on every single page unless we specified it separately. So this is going to apply to the entire website. You don't have to do that. You can do it on a page-by-page basis, or different headers for things like your post section, for your pages, and so on. So we'll say create the template. That'll then open up Elementor, and we can go through and we can choose for any of the predefined designs that are shipped with Elementor Pro. We can look at the pages, which are full templates, or we can look at the My Templates if we'd created and uploaded our own templates. So as you can see, because we've chosen this to be a header, it now defaults to show us the header section. If we click, you can see there are a range of other sections that group the different templates together. So if we were creating something else, we could simply go through and categorize those based upon what we're looking for. We leave it at header for now. We've also then got the option to preview any of these headers by clicking on the little magnifying glass. We can insert them into the page, or we can favorite them by clicking on the little heart. If we click on the heart to favorite something, you will then find that the My Favorite section at the top will show you any of the things you've hearted or favorited. So it's a very easy interface. Okay, so what we're going to do is we could go through the process of designing everything about our website, the templates and so on, but for speed of this, we're going to use these templates that ship as part of Elementor Pro. You can obviously use these and then configure and tweak them to do whatever you want to get the styling exactly how you want for your site. So don't consider these to be a one-click and that's all you have to do. You can go in and fine-tune to make sure that they are consistent with the look and feel that you're trying to achieve. So for our example today, we're going to keep this a really nice, clean and simple website. So we're going to choose something that looks in keeping with that. So I kind of like the look of this one. If I want to preview it, I can click on the little magnifying glass and that'll show us what it's going to look like. So you can see a nice, simple, clean header. If we don't want to use that, we can jump back to the library and take a look at any of the other ones by previewing those. So you can see we can go through and just choose exactly what fits in as the basis for our header. I'm going to come back and I'm going to choose this one. So I'm going to say insert. Once I've done that, that will download all of the assets that are associated with it and create the placeholder for our new header section. Now you will notice a couple of things. First of all, we've just got these grey boxes. The reason for that is because currently we don't have any menu set up and we don't have our logo associated with our particular theme. In this example, the hello theme. So we can do that. Obviously, if we wanted to, we could easily just delete anything that's in there and add our own site logo in directly. However, what I would say is it makes sense to use that logo section inside the hello theme, because what that means is that then if you want to change your logo, you've only got to change that inside the customizer, which we'll take a look at soon. And then that will apply throughout the site that uses that reference to the site logo. So if you look on the left hand side, you can see site logo is the first option, and that's pretty much what we have associated here. If we want to get rid of anything inside this, we can easily come in and just right click, delete, and we get rid of that My Site. So you can see we can easily fine tune and configure this. The same kind of thing goes for the menu section. If we click on there, you can see that now pulls up and tells us you don't currently have any menus associated with this section and no menu set up inside your site. We will come back and address that soon. But for now, we're going to leave this as is and we're going to say publish. Once we click on that, that's going to take us through now to the template publishing conditions. Now, the conditions are very, very simple, but they're also incredibly powerful. What we can do is we can say add a condition. Once we do that, we have two options. We can include or exclude. So you can build up multiple levels to make sure that you target this template to exactly what you want throughout your entire site structure. For this example, we're going to say include, and you can see we have entire site. If I click and expand that out, we have 3 other options in total. We have entire site, archives, and singular. Now, depending upon the type of template you're creating will depend upon what you see inside this particular menu. So as you create things like archive pages or post pages for the single posts and so on, there will be more complex options available, and we will take a look at that when we start to create our archive and our single post pages. But for now, this is very simple. We're going to say we want this to apply to the entire site, and we're going to leave it at that. Click Save and Close. And that's our header completed, and now every page on our site, unless we specify something else, will have that header in place. So now that we've associated the conditions with this template, what happens if we want to make some changes to those conditions? We want to add or change something. Well, it's very easy to do, but it is kind of hidden away a little bit inside Elementor. All we need to do is when we've got the template open, we come down to where it says Update, click on the Save options, the little arrow to the right-hand side, and you'll see we have the option for Display Conditions. We click on there, that'll take us back into the publish settings, and we can then go through and make any changes to our conditions and then reapply that by clicking on the Save and Close, and that will apply those condition updates to that template. So it's very easy. You can go back in and make changes to anything you've created inside the theme builder of Elementor. Okay, so let's close that down. We've finished with creating our header for now. We'll come back and maybe make some tweaks to that later. We're going to come back out of this. We're going to click and exit to our dashboard. We're then going to go back to our theme builder. And we're going to do the same again now for our footer. This time we're going to click on footer, and then we'll click on add new footer. Same thing again, you can see now it pre-fills out footer because we've chosen that tab. We'll come in and we're going to say we're going to set this to be default footer and create our template. That'll then open up the template chooser where we can pick any of the blocks, pages, or my templates, and we're simply going to find something that I think fits into the design that we're going with. And I'm going to keep it really quite clean and simple, and we're going to choose this particular version. So we'll insert that into the page. You can see there's our footer at the bottom. If we want to make changes to anything on here, we might want to take out this phone number. We can easily do that by editing either on the left hand side or directly inside that particular widget itself. So it's very versatile. We can make any changes we want. We'll hit on publish. We'll leave it as is. So click publish. Takes us through to our add condition. Click on there, and again we've got include. You can see the 3 options are available again, and we're going to choose entire site and click Save and Close. So we've now created those header and footer areas on our website. Before we wrap this up, we're going to do a couple of simple things. Let's just come back out of Elementor, exit to our dashboard. We're going to come in, we're going to create a couple of pages. When you use these as blank pages, we'll take a look at actually putting some information on those a little later. So we click on add new, we'll create our home page, we'll click on publish. We'll create an about page and publish. And finally, we'll click add new for a 3rd time, and we'll just create a contact page. Okay, so we'll click on publish on there. We've created 3 key pages. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I need something to put into my menu structure. So those basic pages created, we're just going to come over now into appearance. We're going to choose menus. Once we're inside the menu section, we're going to create our key main menu, which we're going to call main menu. Now you have the option to automatically add new top level pages to this menu. This is something that if you create a parent page, in other words it has no child pages, you can have this automatically add those into your menu structure. However, if you're going to create a site that has a lot of content, I would generally recommend not to do that, because you can very quickly and easily end up with a menu structure that is too big for the actual design you're working with. So I'm going to leave that turned off. I'm going to set this as primary. We're going to go to the left hand side now, say view all, and you can see all of the pages that I can add in are listed. So we're going to choose the home, about, and the contact. We're going to add those in. If we want to reorder these, we can simply drag and drop. If we want to make them sub-menus, we can easily drag and insert those in to the right-hand side of any of the parents. I'm going to keep this really simple and just have to start off with the home, about, and contact. And then we're going to click on Save Menu. That will now automatically associate that menu through with the template for the header, because that's going to use the default menu that's set as primary. So let's just take a quick look at that in action. I've already opened up the page, and you can see there's our header, there's our footer. We've got some content in between because we haven't styled that template yet, which we'll do soon. But you can see that the header now has the menu structure in place, whereas we had that grey placeholder. However, the logo currently isn't displaying. So let's rectify that. Let's come back into our dashboard. We're going to go into Appearance again. We're going to go into Customize. That's going to take us through then into the customizer for the theme that we've got, which in this example, as you can see, is the Hello Child theme. So we know we've got the right theme and everything set up. So let's go through and just set up that logo. So we've got site identity. We can click on there and you can see we have the option at the top to select our logo. So let's just do that. We'll say select logo. I'll upload the logo that I'm going to use for this example, and we'll drop in some alt text. So we'll just call that logo. So we've got our SEO covered. We'll hit select. We'll say we want to skip cropping because we want that to be the full logo. And you can see that now adds that into the top of our design. We've also got the option then to go and update any of the information we had when we installed WordPress at the beginning, such as the site title and the tagline. So for this example, I'm going to take off the tagline. We can also specify a fav icon. In other words, the little icon you'd see up in your tabs on your browser. So you can set that in there. They recommend 512 by 512 pixels. So if you have a logo or something you want to use in there, you can easily upload that, and that then will be associated with your site. Okay, so let's just say we want to publish that. So that's pretty much our header already covered off. So that's pretty cool. We've got that sorted. Now, before we wrap up this section of the video, let's go and make a couple of fine-tuning adjustments to our header. Let's come back out of the customizer. We finished with that. We're going to come over to the template section and into theme builder. And there's our themes, our templates we've just created. So we've got our footer and our header. So let's come into the header first of all and say edit with Elementor. Once we've done that, we're going to take out some of the things that we don't need, and we're also going to make our header sticky. So at the moment, I don't want this second section. There's no need for that. So I'm going to take out that column by simply clicking on the column and click on delete. That now increases the size of our logo slightly. And if we want to reposition that, that's very easy. All we need to do is activate this logo widget. And you can see now all the options on the left-hand side are available. We'll set our alignment to be left. I don't want this button on the right-hand side. So we're going to do exactly the same. They're going to click on this column, right click and choose delete. That now gives us a little bit more extra space for our navigation on the right hand side. So that's the couple of things I want to do, but I also want to make the header sticky. So that's very easy. All we need to do is click on the header block itself. Going to come over to the advanced tab, come down to motion effects, and in there you can see we've got sticky, and at the moment it's set to be none. Going to click on that, and you can see we can specify we want to be sticky at the top or the bottom. Obviously this is the header, so we want to make sure this is sticking at the top. So we click on that, and that will now stick at the top of the page. We can also go through and specify what devices this is going to be sticky on. For this example, I only want it to be available on the desktop. The tablet and the mobile will scroll alongside the actual content. So I can set that on there. If I need to set any kind of offset, I can do that. We might need to come back in and configure that a little later when we put some content in. For now, we'll leave that at the default values. We'll hit update. And because all we're doing is making changes to the actual template we've created, we don't see the condition panel anymore. But again, like I say, if you want to make changes to conditions, you can simply click and open up by using that little right arrow. Okay, so there's our header, fine-tuned and tweaked. We've made it sticky. We've got rid of the things we don't want. So all is pretty good. So that's our header in place, our footer in place. Let's move on now and start creating the templates for the archive, the single, the 404 page, and so on. Now, before we move on and start creating the templates for the various different pages, let's just put in some filler content so we've got something to display when we're working with creating our templates. What I'm going to do is just jump over to the post section. We're going to come in, we're going to say add some new items in there, and we're just going to create a couple of simple posts. I'll do the first one, then I'll pause the video and I'll go and add a couple more in just so we've got some information. So we're going to call this new post, and we'll simply just drop in some filler text. We'll come over and we'll just come in and set a featured image, and we'll upload a couple of images that we can use for our featured images. So I'm just going to grab something from this folder, grab some lower resolution ones, and it doesn't really matter too much what we've got. Let's just choose just a couple of images, and we'll say they'll do. Drop those out there, let them upload, and we are pretty much done. So we'll set our featured image with the first one. Click on set our featured image, and we've got our first post in place. We'll hit on publish. Now I'm going to go through and do that a couple more times just so we have that content when we're working with creating our templates. Just makes the whole process easier to visualize when you actually see some content on the page. So bear with me, I'm going to do that quite quickly now. And there we go. We've got a couple of posts now all set up. So we're ready to move on and create those key templates for our website. So let's just jump over and take a look at creating those right now. Now, when you're building a website from scratch using something like the Hello theme just as the basis for keeping WordPress happy, you have to go through and create all of those key template pages. Now, if you're creating something that just relies on pages and it doesn't use posts, you can basically ignore the archive and the single post pages. However, for this example, we are going to be creating those. So we're going to take it for granted that there's going to be both posts and pages, so we need to create all the different templates. Now, Elementor Pro makes this incredibly easy. If we come over to the template section and come into the theme builder area, you'll see we now have tabs at the top for the header, footer, single and archive. Now, what might be a little confusing is when we talk about the single and the archive. Basically, an archive is where you see a list of your posts, so that sort of blog page where it'll show all the different posts that are available, and then the single is the template that's used to actually view the individual post itself. Now, just to make things a little more complicated, the single also relates to things like pages. So when you create a page, whether that's something like an ordinary page you create or a 404 page, that's also created through the single post section. Now what we do then is we use conditions to specify where these different templates are used. Now if this seems a little bit complicated, don't worry, because as we go through the process, it should become considerably clearer. And as always, if you've got any questions, anything you need me to clarify, we've got the comment section below, so you can just drop your comments in there and I'll come back and help as many people as I can if you get stuck. Okay, so we've already gone ahead, created our header and footer. Let's start off now by creating our archive. Now click on archive. We're going to take us through now and you can see it gives us the ability to create our first archive. We'll click on add new archive. We then got the option to choose a different template type, but because we want to create an archive, archive is fine. We're then going to come down and we're going to say default post archive. Again, getting into obvious logical naming conventions makes your whole process of creating content and templates much easier. So anytime we see this, I know this is going to be the default post archive, and if I've created specific archives for specific sections, categories and so on, then I can name those accordingly and it'll just make the whole process easier. So get yourself into the habit of creating a naming convention that makes logical sense to you, especially as projects get larger and more complex. Okay, so let's create our template. Now for this video, I'm not going to go through and build out tons and tons of templates. We're going to do this for speed. We're going to create the pages using the templates that we have inside Elementor. This gives us a great starting point. If we want to go in and fine tune and tweak any of the aspects, we can do that without having to start completely from scratch. But if you do want to start from scratch, you can do that. And I will show you some of the basic things you can do when you're creating and working with these templates to make sure you get the information that you want inside your actual layout. Okay, so you can see we've got a range of different predefined templates that are part of Elementor Pro, and in much the same ways we saw with the headers and footers, we've got the same options. We can preview, we can go through and we can add this to our favorites, and we can then go through and activate it. So let's simply find a template that we quite like, and I'm going to go for this one. So we insert that for our archive. And there's our archive template. You can see it's now pulled in the posts we just added in this, so we've got some content to see. Now we can change anything we like about this. We can simply come over, click on the little blue edit icon. You can see now on the left hand side, we can go through and we can fine tune and tweak this entire layout. So we have a ton of control if we want to change this background color, because at the moment it's actually showing as a gray, which I don't want. So we're going to click, we're going to come over to the style section and we'll just set the background and we'll clear that. So we now have a nice clean white background. We can then come in and edit the actual archive itself. And you can see at the moment, we've got the classic skin. We can click on there and we can choose from cards, and that will then fine tune it. And as you can see now, we can go in and adjust the number of columns. So we could say we want to keep that to 1, we want to have it to 2. So you can see we still have full control over how we want to edit this. We'll up the quality of that image so we get a better looking thumbnail. We're going to come down there and we're going to get rid of the avatar image. We don't want that on there, and we can go through and just configure this to get exactly what we want. Now we're not going to allow comments on here, so we can just click to remove comments if we want to. So you can see if we want to add anything else in this, we could say the time this was posted. So all easy to add in. Come over to the avatar section and we'll just click to remove that. And obviously if we want to go through and style anything on here, we can go through and we can edit all the styles, the colors, everything to match in to exactly what we want. Now obviously you go ahead and take a lot more time to make sure this looks exactly the way that you want it to. We've seen some of the tweaks we can make and how easy it is with Elementor, but now we're just going to go through and set this to be the archive page for all of our posts. As always, we come to the publish option. Once we do that, that'll now bring up the conditions, and we can simply go through and add our condition in. So you can see it looks exactly the same as it did before, with the only difference saying it says all archives. However, if we click and open that up, you see we now have a lot of options in which you can go through and fine tune and tweak where this archive page is going to be used. Now for ease of this, I'm going to set this to be all archives. So this will show for the post archives, for category archives, tags, the author archive, and so on. But obviously if you wanted to tweak the layout for each of those individual page types, you could do that from this point. So we say all archives, and we'll just say save and close. That's now become the default archive for anything on our site that uses an archive layout. Okay, so we've done that. Let's come out of this, and we're going to exit to our dashboard. We finished with this particular template, so we're going to go over to the theme builder again. Now we're going to go through and we're going to choose the single. So this is now going to be where we create the template to display the actual post content itself. Again, you can see we are given the option to go through and say we want to add a new single in this example. We click on there, and you can see we've got a third option this time. We've got single, select the post type, and then give it a name. If we click to open up the select the post type, you can see we can create a single post type for posts, pages, media, and 404. For this example, we're going to do the post first, but we're going to come back and take a look at doing the pages and the 404 later on. So click on post. We're going to call this default single, because this is going to be the default layout for any single page layouts, unless we've set a different type of page layout. So say all posts will have this particular layout. So we're going to say create template. Once we've done that, again, we'll be taken over to Elementor, where we can go through and we can choose from any of the predefined templates. We can go and create our own template, or we can upload a template that we've previously created and or saved into our copy of Elementor that we're working on. Again, we're going to keep this really simple and straightforward. We're going to use one of the predefined templates because you've already seen how easy it is to edit and configure and tweak everything you want. But again, I will show you some of the options that are available when we're working with templates, and specifically when we're working with single post templates. So let's take a look at what we've got. We've got a range of different layouts, and again, we want to keep this really nice and clean and simple to kind of keep in with that theme that we have with the site of a nice, clean, simple site. So we're going to go for this option. We're going to come over and we'll click on insert. It says, do you want to also import the document settings of the template? Attention, importing may override previous settings. Well, we haven't actually set any previous settings, so we'll just say, yes, we're happy with that. That'll now download all the assets and create that blank page layout for us using that template. So you can see now it's pulled in all of the design options. Now, as I said at the beginning of this section, there are a lot of other options you have available, and a lot of them are used on the page in front of us. But if we take a look on the left hand side, because we're working with a template, and specifically a single post template, we have 8 different options currently that allow us to configure and tweak the content that's on this particular template. So you can see we've got things like post title, post excerpt, content, feature image, and so on. So you really can get in and fine tune and tweak to get exactly the layout that you want using these predefined widgets. So let's see how we can make a few changes to this. You can see the page looks pretty good. All our basic content is being pulled in. We've got some more content to explore at the bottom, sort of related articles. We've also got a comment section at the bottom for if this is enabled on the post types, then they will see this, and obviously the post thread as well. So let's just scroll back up. Let's say we want to make some changes. This header, for example, let's pop in the meta information, in other words, the date, the post title, and so on. Let's pop that up in there and clean up the actual content itself a little. Very easy. All we need to do is come over. We've got edit section, which will choose the entire layout, or we can just click on this header section, and if we want, we can just simply come into these various different widgets, drag them up into there. You can see that will put them in there. We'll do the same with the post title. Now, obviously, the formatting, the position, and so on doesn't currently work because it was set to go into the white of the page below. But we can tweak that very easy. As with everything with Elementor, we have full control. So let's come over. We're going to click on the title to start off with. We'll set that to be centered. We'll also come in then to the style, and we'll change that to be white. So that'll stand off a little bit better. And we can come into typography if we want to, and we'll just change this a little bit. So let's just say I want to use a thinner title. I want to set my title to be all uppercase. That looks pretty good, and I'm going to go through to the letter spacing. We're just going to open that out ever so slightly. Come over to the advanced section, and you can see currently there's a 40 pixel margin at the bottom. We don't want that, so we'll just remove that from there. And we'll do the same kind of thing now for the actual metadata underneath this. We're going to click on that. We'll set this to be under the style, to be centered. we'll come in and we can see we've got the option then for the icons. We can change the color on this. We'll set that to be white, and we'll do the same then for the text. We'll set that to be white as well. So now we've just taken a predefined template, we've tweaked it and made it look exactly how we want it to look. Easy to do. And it just goes to demonstrate that just using a template, you still have all the options to configure, tweak, and edit. And before we move on, there's one other thing I want to do. We don't know what image is going to be placed at the top of each of the different posts. So at the moment, that looks okay with the white text overlaying it, but that might not always be the case. So what we do is we're going to come up, we're going to click to edit the section, come to our style. You can see that this is using dynamic information now to pull in the featured image, which is what we're seeing at the top. We then have all the controls to control exactly the position of the actual image, all those kinds of good things. You can see at the moment this is set to fixed, so it will stay in place. We're going to come to the background overlay, and we're going to set this to be just a normal overlay. At the moment it's set to be a gradient, as you can see. We're going to come into the classic, we're going to set this to be black, that's fine. We're going to adjust the opacity to make that a little darker, around 6.65, somewhere around there. So you can see now, doesn't matter what picture's behind, we will always see our white text placed over the top of that. So just a design thing to think of, this is a template, it could have any kind of image underneath it, so we need to cater for that. But what this should demonstrate to you is it's very easy to edit those template files. So what we're going to do, we're going to come down to publish. Again, you can see we've now got the option to go through and set our conditions. However, we now have two stages to the condition. You can see we've got post, and if we open that up, there are a ton of options. So you can really get right the way down and fine tune exactly what template is going to be used throughout all the different sections of your site. You can even use some things like conditional logic. For example, any child of a particular category, for example, by a particular author, and then we can use the filter on the right hand side to fine tune that actual setting. So for this example, we're just going to leave it set to posts, and we're going to set it to all. So all of the posts will use this template. So let's just come through and say save and close. We've now created our template and assigned that to all of the single posts. So pretty cool. Next up, we're going to come through and we're going to make one more template that we need, because currently we've only set the template up for posts and for archives. So if we have a page, we won't have a template associated with it. So let's just change that now. Going to come through and we're going to exit out to our dashboard. Again, we're going to come into the theme builder area. We're going to come into single again. And once we've done that, we're going to come in and we're going to create a new template. So all we're going to do is say add new. Single is fine, but this time we're going to set this to be page as opposed to post. So we're going to click on page. We're going to call this default page template and click on create template. Now for this, we're going to keep this really simple because we want to have the page to have the ability to go through and do whatever you kind of want with it. However, you can see we've got a ton of different options, predefined layouts we could use if we wanted to, but I want to give full flexibility to not use any kind of template other than a blank page to be able to create our content. So let's click on blank for this, and you can see that'll show us what it's like, and we'll just say insert. We now have a simple, clean, blank template that's going to be used. It'll just have the header and footer on pretty much nothing else. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down and going to click on publish, say pages, and we'll leave that to all. Save and close, and that's the template now for our pages. So let's take a look at what we have now on the front end of our site to see how this is working. We're now taking a look at that test site. So you can see we've got our blog listing as our homepage because currently we haven't set a custom homepage. So by default, WordPress will show your typical blog archive. So you can see there's our layout, there's our setup for showing our archive. If we click on any of these items, we'll jump into that new template we created for our single post. You can see there's our custom title at the top. All the options we've set up in there using that template and the tweaks we've done to it. So that's looking pretty good. Now if we jump over to the about page, which is going to be just using that normal default template we just created for pages, we'll see one little problem. We click on there, we're just seeing a full screen layout. We've got the headers and footers in place, that's great, but all our content is now sort of going wide and full screen. That's not really what we want. But changing that is incredibly easy. And this is one of the beauties of using templates as part of Elementor Pro. Let's come back into that template we just created and we'll select the area at the top, this gray box, which is effectively our template. Now you can see if we look on the left hand side under the layout section, we've got content width, full width. All we need to do is set that to be boxed. Now any content we have, and if we just click on update and we just jump back onto that page and refresh, you see we now have a nice set of margins on the right and the left hand side, so everything is now boxed, and we can obviously override that simply by using the full stretch section when we're creating any kind of template. So that's how easy it is to create those templates. There's one more template I want to create before we move on to the next section, and that is the 404 page template. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back out of this, exit out of our dashboard, come back into our theme builder, come into our single, and we're going to say add new. This time we're going to choose a 404 page, and we're going to call this default 404. So we say create our template. Now, if you don't know, a 404 is basically just a page that if a link on your website is kind of not working, for example, you might have changed the link, you might have deleted the page and so on, by default, you'll get a 404 not found page. And depending upon the server setup that you're using, you might have something that's a little bit customized as part of your hosting account, or you might just end up with a basic 404 page that's part of your browser. Not really the best way of handling it. So what we can do with this is we can create our own custom 404 pages. And as you can see, again, we've got a range of predefined templates which we can use as the basis, and we will just use one of those for now. So we're going to come into this particular one and we'll just say insert. Once we've done that, that'll do the usual thing, download all those things, the bits and pieces we need, all the assets, and then create this 404 page for us. Now we can come in and fine tune and tweak any aspect of this as we always can with Elementor. But we're going to leave it as it is because it's okay. We could put some links on there to various different things we think people might be interested in, but as you can see, the main one is to go back to the home page and continue your search. So let's click on publish. And we get our conditions, and you can see this is include the 404 page. So one thing you should be noticing is that Elementor, when you create these templates and you choose which type of template you want, Elementor is kind of intelligent enough to know that there are certain things you're going to do by default. For example, with the conditions, it's automatically saying, well, this is for the 404 page. So it speeds up your process of creating these custom templates throughout your entire site. So we're happy with that. This is for the 404 page. We click on save and close. That's now our custom 404 page set up. So we've created the key things that we need as the basis for our WordPress website using the Hello theme and creating our own custom theme pages. Next thing we're going to do is move on and take a look at how we can rapidly develop pages using a similar technique, but this time instead of using templates, we're going to take a look at the Elementor page templates. In other words, the different blocks and stuff that make up the actual content of the page, not the sort of placeholder. That'll become a little bit clearer now once I go in and take you through and show you how to do it. But this is a great way of able to speed up that process of creating and prototyping your website, and then just change the information in it to make it a bit more customized. So let's just jump onto that section next. So let's take a look now at how we can create a more customized homepage. Currently, we're kind of viewing just our latest blog posts. So let's go through and create a custom homepage and then assign WordPress to use that custom homepage as the first page of our site. Okay, so let's come into the homepage section. I'm going to come into that page, and as you can see at the moment, it is just literally a blank placeholder page. What we're going to do is we're going to come in and say edit with Elementor. Once that's loaded in, we can now go through and either start building up the different pieces of our page ourselves, or we can use either the full page templates, or we can use the blocks templates. So let's just click on the template option, so add a template. Now all this talk of templates inside Elementor can kind of get a little bit confusing because we've been talking about creating templates that are part of our theme, the theme builder section, and we're also taking a look at templates again now. So what's the difference between the two different types of templates? Easiest thing to do is when you look at a page template like this, where we're taking a look at on screen right now, this is just a predefined layout for a page that you can use, and it is only an individual page. For example, your home page, your about page, and so on. Whereas the theme builder templates where you just created for the archive pages, the post pages, and so on, they are applied across the entire theme. So every time you create a post, you'll have that inserted into the archive page template, and you'll also have it part of the singular post template. Hope that kind of makes a little bit more sense. It's easy to get confused between all these terms of templates. So as you can see, we've now got a ton of defined pages that we can use and pull those in and use those as the basis for our designs. If you don't want to use an entire page, you can come over to the blocks section, and these are the individual components that are on a typical page. So things along the lines of about section, you've got things like call to action, clients, contact, and so on. So these are different building blocks we can use to speed up the process of creating typical sections on our site, at which point then we can go through and completely customize every aspect. So let's take a look at this in two parts. First of all, we come to the pages, and we'll pick a design now that we think is going to be in keeping with the type of website that we're going to create. So we said we're creating something that's nice and clean and simple. So let's find a design that we like that fits into that ethos. So we'll scroll through until we find something that we think, actually, that looks pretty good. Okay, let's find something that looks good. Let's just say we're going to go for something clean and simple like this. Let's preview that. So you can see all the different elements. So you can see this is quite a nice, clean, simple, some nice colors, some simple animations and so on. So we'll go with that one. Hit insert. That will again do the usual thing, which is download all the assets to our local sort of setup, our hosting account. And there's our page created, already set up for us. So now we can go through and fine tune anything we want on here. So say, for example, we want to put an image into the background. We can easily do that by selecting this section, come to the style setting, come over and choose an image. Click, find an image we want to use. So we just go for something like this and we'll insert that in there. And then we can go through and we can just tweak that to say exactly how we want this to be. So we want this to sort of be no repeat, and we'll set this to be cover. And we'll also come over then to, we'll go into the background overlay and we'll do a nice overlay on there. So we'll just say we want to use a particular color. We'll go for this and we'll just adjust the opacity. So you can see it's incredibly easy to come in and fine tune. So now we can come in and say, change any of this. So we can say, super easy to make changes to this. Any aspect of this can all be changed in just seconds. Okay, so we'll say that we're happy with the look and the layouts. There's our home page. We'll hit update. So that'll create the design for the home page, but currently it still isn't our home page. If we come back over to our site and we go to home, you'll see we still have that blog archive. So how do we change that? Super easy. Come back over into our dashboard. We'll exit out of Elementor. We finished with that for now. What we're going to do is we're going to come into the settings section. We're going to come down to reading. Once we click on there, you'll see we have the option. By default, it says your latest posts, which is exactly what we were seeing. However, what we want to do is set this to be a static page. So we say our home page is going to be the home page. Hit save changes on there. We'll come back over now, refresh this page. It's still the home page. So come back, click on home, and you see now there's our newly designed page added into the site for us, all fitting in perfectly into the design using a simple way of creating those pages. So that's how easy it is to create your home page, how we can use those templates that are part of Elementor, and how we can quickly and rapidly make changes to anything that's on that particular page. So let's take a look at the second type of template we had, which was the blocks template. So we're going to create a simple about page. Currently, that's just got some filler text on this. So let's come back over. We're going to go back to our pages, come into all pages, and we're going to come into the about section. So let's just edit that. We'll simply come in and take out this text, and we'll just update our page. Then we'll edit it with Elementor. So we click, come into the Elementor editor. Once we're in there, we're going to come through again. We're going to click on the templates. This time we're going to go to the blocks section, and we're going to pick out some blocks that we think are going to be useful. So we come in, you can see about is a section. So we can click on there, and that will now sub-filter it out and show us the designs that are designed perfectly for about us pages. So let's just find something we think is kind of in keeping with the design that we're looking to achieve. So we want that clean, simple interface, that clean, simple layout that we want. So let's come and say, let's have this one. That looks pretty good. We'll say insert. So let that download all the assets. There's our page inserted. If we want to come in and change any of these images, the text, we can simply click whatever we want to do with it. So we've got full design control over all those different aspects. We'll hit update. Once we've done that, let's come back over to our page. We'll refresh this again. And there's our page, all nicely designed, fitting into that nice, clean design ethos. So that's how easy it is to use both page templates, to use that as a starting block with the entire page set up and designed, at which point we can delete, edit, change to whatever we want. And also how we can use the blocks and we can build up various different parts. Now, if we wanted to add more to this, super easy. Come back over. We want to add another template in, we can click to add a template, and let's sort of use this sort of pull quote kind of thing at the top. So we'll insert that. Now, as you can see, that's underneath the images, which isn't necessarily what we want. So we're going to grab that, drag it up until we get to the top. And then once we get that in there, we'll let go and it drops it into place. Now, if you find this is a little difficult, sometimes when you've got more complicated pages, moving things around can become quite awkward. There's a very easy way and something that Elementor added a couple of revisions ago that makes life considerably easier. It's called the navigator. So we click on the navigator, this will open up this little panel, which if we want to, we can simply dock to the right hand side of the screen. So now what we've got is a visual representation of the entire hierarchy of the page. Sounds really complex, but it's super simple. If we expand that out, you can see every single element on the page is available to us, and that allows us to select all those different things. So for example, where we've got this section, we can click on that, it highlights this is a section. We click on column, it'll highlight the column, so you can see we now got the box around there. We can go inside there and say there's the header, there's the text section underneath it. We want a different column, we can click on that, it'll scroll down and show us exactly what we've got selected. So if we just shrink these up, where we've got these sections, if we want, we can simply just move those around and you can see it updates in real time and shows us exactly what we're doing. We can also make things visible and invisible. So let's just say we've got a really complex long page with tons of different sections on, and we want to make just things a little easier when we're working. Well, you can just turn them on and off. Doesn't get rid of them, it simply just hides their visibility on screen while you're making those edits and changes. So again, really super simple. So let's just drag our section back up to the top, so we've got that exactly what we want, and let's make that a little easier to read. So we're going to click on it, come over to style. So in the background, we simply come over to the background type, we're going to click, we're going to come to the color, and we're going to set this to be an incredibly pale, couple of shades down from being white, just to give it a little bit of visual separation. Now there's something to be aware of. Because we set the page up to have the template for the page to be boxed, that means if we just update this now and take a look at the site, we'll find that the actual content itself isn't being full width. So as you can see, our gray is only showing to the boxed area. How do we deal with that? Really simple. Come back over, we're going to select this particular section, come to layout, and we're going to set the stretch section to be yes, or alternatively, we can just take the box and set that to be full width. However, if we do that, the entire content becomes full width, not just the background. So we set that to boxed, stretch our section, and hit update. And now we come back over and we'll refresh this page. We should now see that our background now fully stretches out all the way across. So like I say, we've got flexibility. Elementor makes it incredibly easy to update and make these pages look exactly how we want. Now there's one area we haven't actually touched upon yet. We've gone through and created all the various different templates we need for pretty much the entire site, but we've only looked at how to work with desktop. We never taken a look at working with mobile and making our website responsive. Now, because we've used previously sort of designed templates and so on as part of Elementor, we can kind of take for granted that a lot of different aspects of sort of mobile responsive has already been catered for. But if you're creating these from scratch, or you want to have more control over how they actually look on a mobile or tablet, we can do that very easily with Elementor. So let's see how easy it is to go through and actually create mobile responsive designs using Elementor. We're going to just choose one of our templates, and we're going to start off just by going into the default single for our single post template. We'll edit that with Elementor. That'll take us back into the editor, and then what we can do is we can see exactly what it looks like on a desktop, but if we want to see what it looks like on other devices, all we need to do is come down onto the panel on the left hand side, come to the responsive mode, and you can see that gives us 3 options based upon various different breakpoints. In other words, which types of screen resolution will change the way things look, which is a desktop, which is a tablet, and which is a mobile. So what we need to do is click on tablet, for example, and you can see now we get a mobile responsive representation of what our site is going to look like. So you can see we can scroll through and make sure everything looks exactly as we want it to look. All the different aspects are in the right order and so on. So everything looks fine on there. If we jump over to the mobile view, you can see everything looks good on there as well. If we scroll right the way down, you can see we've got all the different aspects of our page layout all set up for us. Okay, so that's how easy it is to see what they look like, but what about how do we control these things? How do we control various different aspects of this? Maybe hide different elements that we don't want to show on a mobile device and so on. Again, really, really easy. If we scroll back up to the top, And let's just select something like our title for our post. If we look on the left hand side, you'll see we have things like alignment, and you can see we have three simple little icons. This is your desktop, this is your tablet, and this is your mobile. Now because we're in mobile view, you'll see mobile is currently highlighted in blue, so we can see that this is the particular layout that we're currently looking at. Now the beauty of this is we can change various different aspects. So every time we see these symbols, we can change the parameter that's associated with that based upon the device that we're viewing it on. So for example, we could adjust the alignment based upon whether we view it on a desktop, a tablet, or a mobile. If we come over to things like the style section, you can see if we come into typography, again, we've got those icons available to us. So if we wanted to, we could make the title smaller when we're working with a mobile. We could make it a different size on a desktop and a different size on a tablet, different alignments, different weights, different line heights, and so on and so forth. So it's incredibly easy to customize and tweak all of the different aspects that you need to make sure your design looks perfect on mobile and tablets. Let's take a look at another option. So let's take a look at these icons now for our different social share. Again, you can see if we scroll down on the left hand side, we've got various different options. We can adjust the number of columns that are used to display these different symbols. We can adjust the alignment, and we've got a lot of control just by using those simple options. Again, if we come to style, you can see all of those different options, border sizes, button heights, and so on, all have options to change them based upon the device. Again, typography has the same kind of option, so we can adjust size, letter spacing, and so on. If we come over to the advanced section, you can see we can adjust the margins, the padding, all those kinds of things are catered for inside Elementor. So let's just come back over to this, and let's just say we'll set the column value, for example. So let's just say on a mobile, we want to have just one column. You can see that immediately changed the look and the feel. If we now switch over to a different type of device, you can see now we're back into a tablet. We've now got 4 in a row as opposed to 4 individual rows because we have no column value set. But let's just say, for example, on there, we wanted to set that to 2. Easy. Come back over then to something like the columns, and again you can see if we change that from auto and we'll just say 3 on there, you can see each time we change it, if we switch between the different types of devices, all those different settings are associated with each of the different devices. So it's very, very easy to go through and make sure that everything looks the way you want it to. So that's the basics. How about some other things? How about we say we don't want this left-hand column to display when we're actually looking at a mobile? Can we do that? We can, very easily. Come to the advanced section, we'll switch over into responsive mode and we'll go into mobile. So you can see if we scroll down, right at the bottom we've got the information about the author of this particular article. Now I don't like the way that looks, so I've got a couple of options. I could go through, adjust the styling on there to make sure it looks exactly as I want, or I can go through and specify whether this is viewable or hidden on different types of devices. In this example, let's just say we want to hide this based upon if anyone's using a mobile. Go to the advanced section. All we need to do is come down to the responsive, and you can see we have 3 checkboxes. We can hide this particular item on different types of devices. So if we say hide on mobile, making sure that we've got this row column selected, we'll click on that. Now, even though it still shows it in the editor, that will now be hidden on mobile devices. So we won't see that section at all in our design unless we're looking at it on a desktop or a tablet. It is that easy to show and hide things. So by using this very simple method, you could easily set up different kinds of layouts based upon the device that's being viewed on. So you could have a slightly modified layout for a desktop or a tablet or a mobile, and do whatever you want with each one of those. So it's pretty cool how we can use those responsive options easily inside Elementor. So as you go through the process of creating your templates, creating your pages, it's a good habit to get into to ensure that they look great upon those different devices, knowing that you can fine tune and tweak everything. So get into that habit that when you're creating these, set it up in whichever method you want first, whether you're working for mobile first, and then you want those things to scale up towards tablets and desktops, or if you're actually just creating responsive where desktop is your key audience, then degrade gracefully. So go through the different process of setting up your desktop the way you want to look, then move down to the tablet, and finally the mobile to make sure everything looks consistent and the way that you want it to get maximum control over the way that your site looks on all the different devices that people can view your site on. Okay, so we've gone through now and created the majority of our entire site, the templates and so on. We checked for mobile responsiveness and made sure that everything looks good there. What's left to cover and take a look at? Well, It's great to be able to use something like Elementor, and when you're creating templates, that's really useful because you can then style things like headings and subheadings and so on. There's different elements that are actually pulling in dynamic data from just the posts that you create. But what about if you're creating a post layout or a page layout that's independent of those themes and you want to have some consistency of the font styling, colors and so on? How can we actually set things like that up? Because we're using a theme like Hello, it's very stripped out, very basic, leaving us to basically control every aspect over those very simple things we have like logos, menu choices and so on. Well, we got a couple of ways we can do this. I'm going to show you first of all how we can set some various different things up inside Elementor, and then I'll show you how you can go beyond that and actually start custom coding your own CSS definitions. So let's take a look at how we use Elementor first of all. If we come into Elementor and we come into, for example, one of our posts or one of our templates, it doesn't really matter where we go as long as we can access Elementor. What we can do is we can come in, we'll say edit with Elementor. That'll open up the Elementor editor and it gives us the ability then to go into some of the different settings that we have available. So if we come to this top menu in the very top left hand side, click on there, you can see we've got some additional options. Now up until this point, all we've done is use exit the dashboard. We've also taken a look at maybe like the view page by either using this section or the icons at the bottom. However, we do have some great controls here. For example, if we come into default colors, you can see we've got 4 default colors that are used throughout the site. So whenever we add something in, because our theme doesn't control this currently, we have the ability to specify what those colors are. Now, if we take a look underneath, you can see we've got some predefined palettes, and if we choose one of those, then various different things on our site will change. So you can see when we mouse over now, the links at the top, they're no longer blue, they're now red. However, if we come down to, for example, this royal one, and you can see we've got different colors again. We mouse over, you can see we've now got purple colors. And if we come down to earth, for example, you can see we have various different colors there as well. So we have this sort of burgundy color. So we can use any of those palettes, or we can easily come in and customize and choose our own. So if you're working to a specific color palette, you can easily come in, set your color palette up inside here, and then those will apply throughout your designs, your templates and so on, wherever those colors are referenced, your primary, secondary, text and accent and so on. So you have that level of control, so you can change those if you want to. Let's just reset that. We'll simply come back out of there. Next up, we've got default fonts. Now at the moment with this, we do only have pretty basic level of control over what fonts are used and where they're used. You can see we've got primary headline, secondary headline, body text and accent text. So not a huge amount. So if you want to go above and beyond this and you're not relying upon a theme to do it, then you are going to have to get your hands dirty and use some kind of CSS coding, which again we'll take a look at in the second part of this section. But just let's take a look. So we've got our body text on this particular area. We're previewing. So if we come down and we say we want to change this, we could easily come in and say, well, we want to change the font weight. And you can see immediately that's updated. And the nice thing with this is this will update throughout the entire site because we are globally changing the values inside this particular section throughout anywhere in Elementor. So that's very, very powerful. But like I say, we are still slightly limited by the amount of actual settings we currently have in here. So hopefully this is something that Elementor will elaborate on further down the line, and they'll start to give us full control, especially when people are using the Hello theme, because it does give you a great level of control to have more ability to make changes to headlines and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's just say we wanted to change this from being Roboto. You can see we have literally hundreds of different fonts we could use on there. So we've pretty much got all the Google fonts. We've got normal safe fonts and things on this. You can see custom fonts. We've got default. We've got your system fonts, which you'd normally expect to have. And like I say, then you have Google. You can go on if you want to and add your own custom fonts. That's beyond what I want to cover in this video, but you can do that through the Elementor settings panel where you can add things like that in. However, we're going to keep this straightforward and use what most people are going to do, which is using those Google fonts or the system fonts. So if we wanted to, we could easily come in here and let's just say you wanted to change Roboto to Open Sans. Click, you can see that immediately updates. If we want to change the weight, we can do that to something crazy, or we can take it to something we think is a lot more readable. So again, very, very easy to do. We can't change the size on here. We'd have to do that inside the Elementor editor itself for the relevant section that's pulling in this dynamic data, or we'd have to do this inside the actual post or page itself. So you can see you do have some control there, but not a huge amount of control. If we come back out of that, we've got the color picker. Now, any way you can pick colors throughout the entire Elementor site editor, you can choose any of these 8 colors. Now by default, you've got these particular 8 colors, and again underneath we've got palettes of colors that have been predefined, so you can use any of those if you want to. However, you can again simply come in and customize any of these colors to make sure they fit into the custom palette that you're working with for the design or the site that you're currently working on. So like I say, anywhere that color picker, for example, things like your fonts, your drop shadows and so on, these 8 colors will be evident there, and you can change them at this point and they will reflect again throughout the entire website. Any changes you make to these colors will also be reflected through your design. So keep that in mind if you change colors later on down the line. That will have a ripple effect through your design. So that's how we can use the basic controls inside Elementor to set up things like color palettes, color choosing, and go through and set some of the basic fonts. We do have some more controls. If we come into Elementor, and what we do is you can see we have custom fonts if we want to add our own custom fonts in there. However, we can override those options if we want to. Let's just say we want to come in and specify that we don't want Elementor to control any of the sort of typography, colors, and so on. We can do that. What we need to do is go into the settings panel. Inside there, under the general section, you can see we've got options to disable default colors and disable default fonts. So no matter what we would set then in that Elementor panel we've just taken a look at, they would basically be ignored completely. So if you are finding that when you're trying to set up some custom CSS styling and you're still finding that Elementor is overriding it, it's a good idea to come into this point and change those settings to make sure you have full control over all of the fonts and styling, colors, and so on throughout your entire site. So just bear that in mind. Okay, so now let's take a look at how we can put that custom CSS in. All we need to do is come down to Appearance and go into Customize. And inside the Customize, we've got back into our theme. You can see we have a tab that says Additional CSS. And if we click to expand that out, we can now start custom coding CSS directly inside here. So if you want to start typing something in and adjusting things like your headings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you can set those up. So you can set things like your colors, size, line spacing, all the things you can do with CSS. So if you are comfortable working with CSS, you can do that directly inside this particular panel. However, if you're not that comfortable with CSS and creating your own, there is another option. We can use plugins like CSS Hero. Now, CSS Hero allows you to visually edit and change pretty much every aspect of your entire site and can go beyond a lot of the things that you can do out of the box, styling and laying things out inside Elementor and Elementor Pro. So if you are looking for a visual way of doing these kinds of things, I would highly recommend taking a look at that. There's a link in the description below so you can check out more on that. I've also got a couple of videos on the channel that demonstrates exactly how to use and get the most out of CSS Hero. So please check those out. I'll link those in the description below so you can take a look. But it's a great way of being able to customize your entire site without that dependence upon being able to custom code everything yourself. The great thing about it is on the front end, in other words, what people see, all CSS Hero does is add an extra CSS style sheet in that's independent of your theme and everything else you do. So if you want to undo any of the changes, it's incredibly easy to do. So check that out if you want to. There are alternatives, things like Yellow Pencil, which is another option you can take a look at that does a very similar thing. I don't have any experience of using that, so I can't comment. I tend to use CSS Hero in my projects. So that's how we can go through and we can customize the various different CSS definitions and style and colors throughout our entire site. So I'm going to wrap the video up at this point. We've gone through and covered a whole range of different topics and skills. We've taken a look at how we can take the Hello theme, which is a bare bones theme just to keep WordPress happy. We've gone through the process of creating all the key fundamental templates for a WordPress website. We've then gone through, created some simple content, we've customized things, we've taken a look at mobile responsive and a whole range of other topics. This is just scratching the surface of some of the great things you can do using Elementor and Elementor Pro, the theme builder, and a theme like Hello Theme. So as always, I'd love to get your feedback on this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, you can give it a thumbs down. That's perfectly fine. But as always, let me know why you didn't enjoy it in the comment section below. As always, speak in the comment section. I'd love to get your feedback on this video and everything we cover on the channel. Let me know, have your feedback. Let's get that conversation started. Well, my name's been Paul C. This has been WP Tuts, and until next time, take care.